Welcome to another episode of Talkin' Shop. I'm joined by my friend Christopher Clepp, who is up in Chi-Town, right? Or in the
Yes.
area up there.
Yeah, wonderful, snowy, windy city, right?
And I was just talking to Stephen Fox earlier. He's out in San Diego, and you're talking to Taylor Schulte and some other the West Coast guys. They were whining over the last week because it was raining, and I'm like, dude, it's snowing and stuff here, and in a week's time you're gonna be back to warm weather. So I have little sympathy for those out west in the nice weather, getting through this when we have this crummy weather here. Because down in Indy, our weather's not that much different than yours.
Yeah, it makes you stronger and more resilient when you live in the Midwest like this.
There you go. So, with this unique time that we're in, how are things going? How are you and the family?
Yeah, we're actually doing pretty well. I'm much like you. I'm an optimist. I really try and find the best in this, and really trying to enjoy the amount of time that I get to spend with my son, who's 20 months old. You would never get this opportunity underneath normal circumstances. So I'm really trying to find the blessings that are available to us in focusing on that and focusing on being able to control 100% what I eat. There's no meals out with clients and friends and all of that. So I'm really able to dial in and focus on it. Obviously not the way that you would want to go about creating that sort of discipline, but I will take the time that I have on my hands and try and put it to the best possible use.
So, how much of is it a struggle as a dad with a young one? So, 20 months, he's been around a little while, but I remember telling my wife that when we first had Roman, I felt like I had a crush on him. Like I always thought about him, and I wanted to always be around him. But you got to go to work. So now that he's there, how hard is it to not leave work to go hang with him?
Yeah, it's difficult. It's tough trying to find the rhythm for both my wife and I, because we're both fortunate enough to be working at this point, and so we just sort of go back and forth, and it's great. I definitely value the daycare that we have, because it is tiring being on all the time between going from client to child to client to child to client to child, back and forth, or our work and what we have to do. So it's definitely has its great moments and being able to spend that time with them, but I also definitely value the ability to sometimes be able to focus entirely on work at a given time. So I'm not going to. I definitely will be happy when daycare a little bit opens up as far as being able to focus, but it's just amazing just watching 24/7 this little guy as he develops and gets these sentences, and the way that even the snow this morning, and he was just standing in the window talking about it, was just absolutely mind blowing to me, and it's really great. And I probably won't have this opportunity to spend that time like this ever again.
Right. You said being on all the time. That's a good way of describing. It just feels like the days run into each other and the weeks run into weekends. And like, I don't really feel like there's ever a day of rest. Like it's always on. So I think that's a great way to describe it. So how are things with clients? One of the things that I'm hoping to get from these conversations is just kind of get a pulse of what are our clients saying? Are clients panicking? Are they okay? So how are your clients doing?
By and large, my clients are doing great. A lot of them passed on phone calls that I offered to them. Quite a few did take me up. I know that there's this sort of phrasing that I see that I don't really like, where advisors say they have clients trained, because I don't think that's doing a proper service to what we're doing. Hopefully, is really just educating the clients so that they feel comfortable with the situation, that we've prepared them properly to know that this was coming. We didn't know why, we didn't know when, we just knew it would come eventually. Not exactly this, but something similar. My clients have been pretty good. I tend to deal with younger clients. Most of my clientele is under the age of 50, and they have a longer time frame. So I think they're worried a little bit less. The clients that did reach out to me actually are probably my most conservative clients that may only be 20, 30, 40% in equities. And they were the ones that had the largest concerns. And we've talked the most, and there was a reason why they were conservative to begin with, because that's what made sense for them. And that was the right investments. But most of them have been really appreciative. I've really tried to focus a lot on communication, whether it was the newsletter that I started last year. I've gotten a lot of feedback from clients on that. I took to doing Loom videos, which I think I borrowed from you as a recommendation. Obviously I did emails to them, letting them know that if they want to have a phone call, I'm always available to them. Some of them certainly took advantage of it, but a lot of them were, like, we know that this is going to happen. We'd rather just focus on our family and what else that we have to do. My business owner clients, I probably have spoken to the most in helping them with this whole PPP loan process, and helping them understand how we can help them with their cash flow and ideas about what to do with their 401k matches and things like that. So the business owner clients have had conversations, but it's really been less about their personal finances and maybe what resources that I can bring in from my network to help them as well.
So being that your clientele is more on the younger side, chances are they probably were planning and thinking about these things in 2008, 2009, but fast forward to now, it's a much different situation. At least that's what I found with my younger clients, that while I wasn't working with a lot of them back in 2008, they were real earlier in their career. So, they may have been making good money at that point, but they didn't have a family, or they did, it was young. They didn't have a lot of investments, but now they have larger investments. They have higher incomes. They have a family to rely on. So I found that I got more initial calls and emails from the younger clients than I did from my older clients. And as I reached out to my older clients, they were kind of like, hey, we've been through this before. We know we have our plan. We have the portfolio situated for income needs and everything. Like, we're okay. It was more of the younger ones. And my thought is, this is their first real time experiencing something like this to a level where they see it and they feel it. And they've never been through that before. So they were more likely to reach out. Do you see anything similar to that, or no?
Well, I definitely had a couple of clients where we had real good, meaningful conversations about what risk tolerance really is that we all go through this. We all have this is how much this portfolio could conceivably go down under worst case scenarios. And everybody checks off a box and what they think is right. And then you get into all this, the bullets start flying, and then you find out, well, maybe that wasn't, I don't feel quite as comfortable, as I thought I would in this situation. So there was a couple of those conversations, but most of my clients were really just focused on their long-term goals. If they have any really short-term goals, if they're saving for purchasing houses, in the next couple of years, that money was sitting in cash anyways. Like my wife and I were real fortunate. We're planning on buying another house in the next 12 to 24 months. Our down payment's just sort of sitting there, right? And so the clients that are in situations like mine, they were also like that. They had money in cash where they didn't see, the wild swings, and we were able to keep them focused on, if you're 40, it's 25 years to quote unquote retirement, right? But really this is a 50 year plan that we're going on, and we can't worry about what happens in 5 days. We're more focused on what's going to happen in 5 decades.
Mm-hmm. So let's look back to risk tolerance real quick before we kind of wrap things up on a tip. I think risk tolerance is so difficult, and I know a lot of people like to rip on, and it's usually the people that are not the most friendly on social media, but they like to rip on social or on risk tolerance programs, whatever it might be. Take your pick. We don't need to name any of them. But the thing is, I think those are just tools to allow us to have a conversation. But risk tolerance changes. It could change day to day. Like, the answer that you could go through and develop for the plan today could have been your client's risk tolerance in that moment. And there's more that changes risk tolerance than just the economic environment, what the market's doing. It could be job change, income changes. Like, there's so many things. And in the moment, you can't go back and say, well, what we did a year ago is not really what my risk tolerance is. It's this now. Like, that makes it tough. And I don't know, other than ongoing communication, talking about the different scenarios that we see with these risk tolerance softwares, to say, okay, with this portfolio, here's a reasonable expectation based off of the data that we have. The data that we have doesn't predict the future, but like this is the best that we have. We can't guess what the future is going to be. So let's just talk about what would have happened, what could happen within different parameters, and then just start to have a conversation about it. But until it actually happens, that client's not going to be able to really tell you or tell us how they feel. So I think that from a risk tolerance standpoint, you kind of use your favorite company as a starting point, have a conversation, and then just continue to revisit that. And I think one of the things that helped through this process was, as we were 8-9 years into the market doing real well, and clients are loving seeing these big gains, telling them that, hey, well, what if that was a flip? What if that was a negative next to that, 75,000 or 100,000? How would you feel then? And they, even then, when you throw that scenario out, they can't really process it, but I think they might be able to gather a little bit of what that might feel like. And again, it leads to a conversation. So I think risk tolerance is always ongoing. I think it's one of the soft skills as a financial advisor. You pick up on how to read people, that they say this, but other things they're doing might contradict that. So maybe they're not as risk tolerant, or you're comfortable with risk as they say they are, or maybe they're not as conservative as they say are because there are other actions. So what are your thoughts on the best way to kind of gauge risk tolerance when it comes to our clients?
Yeah, it's really a tough scenario because all the tools out there are pretty imperfect, right? I do remember having conversations though towards the end of last year when all of my clients had a really great year, and I was telling them, and it's not like I was prescient. I knew eventually it would happen. As I told them, I'm neither as smart as you think I am right now, nor as dumb as you think I am going to be at some point in the future. But who knew that we were just a couple months away from me looking pretty dumb, but not really in the grand scheme of things. But it's hard not to have those feelings when you see it go down. I think those ideas behind that Whitney has with agile financial planning, like just really being in constant contact, that it's not that really that big, that binder that they used to throw on the table that's important. It's the constant conversations, it's the constant iterations that we have that are so important. And you're absolutely right, is that if what someone's risk tolerance is when both people are employed and everything is going fine is a lot different than when one of the spouses is now on furlough or laid off and the other one's taking a 20% hit. That changes a lot for them. And it's important to continue to have these conversations and help them try and mentally picture what could happen, but then also be there to have those conversations when it actually does happen, to make sure that they are okay and that they're not losing any sleep over their situation.
And one thing I don't want to lose sight on is, like, we're talking about risk tolerance and portfolio, but as you mentioned earlier on, there's a lot of things that you've been helping your clients with in the last month, especially you said the business owner ones. Like this, chances are this is not the time that we're making insurance changes and estate planning changes, because those have already been done, and what's going on isn't impacting that. Most likely, maybe there's some things that change it, but for most in general, the current environment is not impacting the other parts of the plan that have been put together. Like those are they're set in stone. We review those, but that's not changing it. So the focus comes to portfolio, to investments, which isn't always the best thing from a perspective, because we want our clients to realize we help in more ways, but that's the thing that they see right now. That's the pain point, and that's where we can drive the most value and benefit helping them today. In addition to PPP loans, EIDL, all that stuff that you're helping your small business owners with.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely, it's very important for me to be able to address whatever is on my client's mind, because this is their plan, and what they're paying for is peace of mind. I mean, they don't want this big pile of money to do the Scrooge McDuck backstroke through. Is that they just want control? They just want control. They want that peace of mind. They want to know that things are taken care of, and that's what real financial planning is. I particularly stress with clients that my value add to them is not the portfolios. It's not the investment piece. To me, it's just such a small part of what we can do for our clients. And I think that some of them have seen that a lot right now, but a lot of them, obviously, it's hard to avoid social media and everything that they see on the news and the market going down. And every time it goes down, they quote it in points, and every time it goes up, they quote it in percentages, because it makes for bigger headlines that the Dow is down, that the markets are down 2,000 points, when nobody really has a reference point to that. So we have to sort of get them away from the focus of what social media and what you see on CNBC and Fox Business and all that are putting out there all the time. And I think that can be, that in itself is a real value add, is to help our clients get focused on what is really going to make the long-term differences for them.
So, quick transition, closing thoughts. One tip for other financial advisors, something that you found that while you've been doing it while working from home has helped you be more productive, more efficient, have better balance. What's one or two? I've had a couple people do a couple. What are some things you would tell advisors to consider if they're struggling with this work from home?
So I would say that my tips are not going to necessarily be working from home, but just sort of keeping your sanity during all of this. Number one is physical activity. Every day I'm doing something to get myself moving. Just about every day is a walk with my son. It's a few hundred push-ups, it's some burpees, it's some kettlebells, it's whatever I can do, because to me that really clears my mind and allows me to be really sharp, and see things clearly. And it definitely manages my anxiety. The other thing is that I shut off screens. By 9 o'clock, the phone is put in a different room when I go to bed, because it's real easy, even for me, to want to be on Twitter all the time and find out what's happening and get involved with this. And I did that very early on. I saw how much my screen time went up. I saw how much more poorly I was sleeping at that point. And it wasn't doing me any good at all. And I made that change to get my phone out of the room when I'm sleeping, so I don't have the urge to pick it up. And all of those things have just allowed me to be calmer, more cool-headed, and I think has made it. And obviously, we want to make sure that we are as stress-free as possible when we're dealing with our clients, because we need them to be stress-free as well. And if I'm going to tell them to tune out all of the noise on social media, then listen, I can't say one thing and do the other. I have to lead by example.
Mm-hmm. You're a leader. As you're describing that, I'm thinking like leadership. We need to be stoic leaders and have calm heads. And I think all those things. My problem is my phone is my alarm clock, so it's in the bedroom. So I need to invest in an alarm clock that I can get rid of the phone.
I was going to say, I'm lucky. I wake up at the same time, pretty much with or without the alarm clock. I'm just sort of into that zone at this moment. Plus, my son's not going to let me sleep in past 6 o'clock, and he's like an alarm clock anyways.
Right. Sounds good. Well, Christopher, I appreciate your time, the conversation about risk tolerance and everything else, and then also the words of wisdom of activity. I think that's the third time today in doing these videos that someone has talked about physical activity and doing something. So I believe in that as well. So I appreciate you taking the time and sharing that with us. And I'll let you get back to your afternoon so you can wrap up and get to the weekend. So appreciate it, Christopher. Everybody,
awesome,
thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we'll be back with another episode soon. So we'll see you in the next episode.